Not only was this man the biggest predator in television, he's still employed in hiding behind his wife. So I'm going to go into Julie Chen in a minute and how she is providing cover for this man. But just a recap for anyone new here. Les Moonves was in charge of CBS for like 23 years, I think. 12 women have made allegations against him in the New York Times and the New York that are horrifying. He also was the reason why Designing Women ended. He destroyed the career of Linda Bloodworth Thompson. He replaced pretty much all the feminist shows at CBS, the ones that I grew up watching that inspired me to become the woman I am. He's responsible for taking her career away too. He's also responsible for destroying Janet Jackson's career and letting Justin get away with almost zero consequence. Because Les hated with a passion Janet Jackson and had a personal vendetta against her, along with the creator of Designing Women and many women. And then those shows were replaced by crap like this and this trash and lots of propaganda. Like, I don't even know how many, 16 series maybe? I don't even know how many series of, look, hot young women, cops are amazing. When really all these shows did was use women's trauma, schmegdual trauma, and being the violence against us as just a fun topic to explore. And then the cop's gonna get the bad guy. Oh, unless we forget Revenge of the Nerds and all those shows that normalize men dating up and women dating down. He's also responsible for Survivor, and I'm going to get back to that in a minute because it's going to come full circle. So, for Murder, She Wrote, Angela Lansbury herself said it is one person who is responsible for killing her show by moving it from Sundays, which it was thriving in that spot, to Thursdays to compete with like Friends. And would you believe this man had the gall to even blame his daughter for canceling this show? His 10-year-old daughter didn't want to watch his network. And so basically he uses this dumb story. By the way, he also tried to hide behind his kid's iPad. He gave his kid's iPad to the police when he was busted for all of these allegations of Anyway, he wanted CBS to be cool. This man is so insecure, and he really didn't like strong women, and he didn't like sci-fi and dorks, which is another reason why he's been credited with also ending Star Trek's run. 18-year run. So this was in the Tampa Bay Times, and he talks about how he didn't like that it's 60 Minutes, Murder, She Wrote, Northern Exposure, which was also a great show. He wanted cops, big, stuffed, tongue, strong cops, and hot women, and if there were going to be nerds, they're going to have to date hot nerds. Because you see, Les used to be a wannabe actor. And he started off wanting to be an actor playing tough guys and all these no-name whatever shows that went nowhere. So he's basically a failed actor who was like, how can I be that tough guy I want to play on TV? Instead, he became one of the top 5 most powerful people in Hollywood. He's called Mr. TV by lots of people. This dude made even more money than Bob over at Disney. The man ruined so many women's careers. In fact, when this wannabe actor became so powerful, this is why women are terrified of nerds. Losers, insecure men, when y'all get a taste of that power, you're a nightmare. You become Biff. The world is your George McFly, especially anyone you have power over. So Les became king of the baby of CBS and created a mafia culture there. He also ruined this woman. She died before, she never got justice, but she joined in on the story. Pioneer for women, very successful woman. Luckily, she got to tell her story, and her family is continuing to tell her story. She was the one that exposed that Les had the LAPD captain in his pocket. They literally had to do an investigation in the LAPD because this man had so much power. This man was a monster before he even got CBS. She was unable to secure further executive work in Hollywood. She then turned to substitute teaching in LA public schools. Now, Harvey, who was the predator most known in the movie world, his wife left him. Boom, done. But Les has been hiding behind his wife, Julie Chen, ever since. And she has stood by her man. And this is where things get a little complicated. As a survivor myself, of, domestic violence, stalking, blah, all this stuff, right? I know the mind fork of dating a predator. I know the mind fork of also being related to a predator, because I'm a survivor of childhood. So I understand how a woman can be in a relationship with a man and make all kinds of excuses and lie to herself. And in doing so, causing a lot of damage to all of the people that man hurts. So you can be both a victim and an enabler at the same time. And I also want to acknowledge that this woman has endured so much racism in the industry. I know how hard it is as a woman to make it in entertainment. Been in the business for a long time. It is full of predators. It's full of men who promote men and hire men and lock everyone else out. And it's mostly white men doing this, right? So if it's hard for me as a white woman, multiply that by however many for a Black, Indigenous, or another woman of color. So let me give you a little bit of background on what she's been through, so that at least, not to excuse her covering for her husband, but maybe understand the context a little more. When she was at the talk, Sharon Osbourne apparently was a nightmare to work with. Even though it seems like these two were friends at one point in time, allegedly, Sharon Osbourne had lots of racist things to say. Trigger warning, if you want to read what she had to say. She also made fun of Sarah Gilbert for this and this. But she was not a fun person to work with, apparently. Sharon also apparently defended her buddy, Piers Morgan. And, after all of his attacks on Meghan Markle, all the misogynoir that was directed at her, and anybody who enables that, okay, you get my point. Julie also claims that her career was sabotaged at the talk and felt like they stabbed her in the back. Now, I have issues with her thinking that they stabbed her in the back for them being like, I don't want to work with a woman married to a man who did all of that. And to be honest, I would not feel safe with a coworker married to a man who did all that, allegedly. And after all those women came out, would say something like this. I know my husband. I've been married to him almost 14 years. He's a good man, a loving father, devoted husband, inspiring corporate leader. He has always been kind and decent and moral human being. I fully support my husband and stand behind him and his statement. It's not just that, though. She didn't just fully stand behind him. She doubled down. Her name has been Julie Chen up until those allegations came out. And right after that, in support of him, she added Moonves to her name. So now her professional celebrity name, which is a big deal to change your name once you're famous. Even women who get married do not change their name. She didn't change her name when they got married. But after he was accused of essaying all those women and destroying all those women, now she's going to add his name to her name. What? So now her name is Julie Chen Moonves, and it has been since after that came out in 2018. Given some of her backstory that she's talked about, her dad was her grandfather was a polygamist, had 9 wives. He was a womanizer. I don't know much about her family, but what she has talked about for Variety was her family's reaction, especially her dad. She says she comes from old school immigrant family. My dad is old school Chinese father, very into being upright and honorable. She thinks her dad was actually more upset than her husband and her were. So for a lot of reasons, many that we do not know, Julie is standing by her husband. And, she talks about how her, coworkers were like, if she's coming back, we're not. And she feels betrayed by them without seeing how other women might feel betrayed by her. So after she left the talk, she was a mix of emotions. She was angry, frustrated, she felt robbed, she felt like all her friends turned her back on her. And it's not fair that she paid the consequence of her husband's abuse, but by her very public stance in supporting him, and yet I'm not excusing this, I'm just explaining. I do not know what it's like to face the racism that she did in the industry. I don't know how hard it was for her to make it to the place she is because of white supremacy culture and misogyny and all the things, meaning she had to work way harder to get where she's at than a man or a white woman in the same position would. She's got more at stake. She's sacrificed more. She's pushed harder. I can empathize with that. If you want to pause and read all of this, it's really interesting and heartbreaking. She was also pressured into getting surgery on her eyelid. Her agent, then a news station from her younger adult years as a journalist, told her she would never make it unless she got this surgery. There's lots of articles about this that cover this so much better than I have time to right now. I highly suggest this one in The Atlantic or this one in Time Magazine. So while I personally am very frustrated that she is providing cover for her husband, that is one of many factors that keeps this man from ever being accountable. You cannot take misogyny, white supremacy culture, and how much those things add way more context to her decision. We know most predators don't ever see consequences. But one way they do it is by hiding behind their wife. Never face any consequences. He's still working. And honestly, I've kind of forgot he existed. I hoped in some land far away where justice might actually ever happen that this man had any consequences, but he didn't. And the reason I found out about it is because his wife, Julie Chen Moonves, now that she wants her predator husband's name attached to hers only after the accusations came out against him. Now that she has written a book, I'm really annoyed with her. Now, again, there's a big, huge part of me that is so empathetic towards her because I know what it's like to be enmeshed with a predator and not being able to see the truth. And I also know what it's like to believe all their lies. You know, he promised her that. I'm sure she's like, okay. Because when you're in that mindset, you have to believe them. You have to. There is so much at stake. If they are not who they say they are, your life falls apart. Your job, your family, your image, all those years together, it's all done, you know? I say this as somebody who's had women in my life refuse to hear the truth about a predator because their survival instincts kept them in that denial. So I have a lot of empathy for her in that regard. I also have a lot of empathy for her because I have no idea what it was like to go into the entertainment industry and face as much racism as she did. As a white woman, I will never understand how much easier I have it. I can learn, I can try, but I cannot understand what it's like to have to be coerced into having eyelid surgery in order to do the job that my heart desires. So I say all of this just to give context, because one of the things I truly try to understand where people are at and why they're doing what they're doing, even if I think what they're doing is wrong. I don't know. I try to understand it. I'm not justifying it. I'm just trying to understand it. So that's where I'm coming from. So in addition to having a lot of pressure from her father and, you know, just her family in general, in terms of image, and I talked about it in the last video, I also don't know what it's like to have the added old school immigrant pressure from my family members. So again, that factor also adds a whole new layer that I don't understand on a personal level from personal experience. Although I am Southern. And Southern white women are obsessed with image. So I can kind of understand, but it's different, obviously. With this kind of non-apology tour that she's doing right now because of her memoir, where she's basically like forgiven her husband for not really doing anything wrong, you know, because she still doesn't believe he does anything wrong. What got her through the consequences of the actions that he didn't do was God. God got her through this. And anytime somebody uses God to explain the horrific behavior of themselves or someone they love, sometimes I'm like, okay, now you sound really condescending. And you're using God's love to enable. I don't agree with that. So she says that before she found God, she was self-absorbed, career-minded, vain, and gossipy. A shallow person. Like, said a lot of mean things about herself. But now that she's got her predator husband's name attached to her name, Julie Chen Moonves, she knows the Lord and is someone who wants to help others, who wants to look at everyone with a soft heart. I love that in theory, but when you're dealing with a man who destroyed the lives of so many women, I'm sorry, I'm not going to look at that person with a soft heart. In fact, my biggest problem personally as a survivor is that I give men way too much empathy that they have never deserved. And because of my internalized misogyny, I'm actually harder on women than men, which is why I'm being very careful with this, because I don't want to take my anger out at what he did on her. But as anyone who follows my page knows, women who center men are very dangerous to the world, and especially to other women, and especially to children. And so I distance myself in whatever ways I can from women who center men, because they will always throw you under the bus. And yet, as most of us have grown up being taught to center men, I also understand why she's doing it. She says, you know, of course, after the allegations, I asked my husband. Of course he says he didn't do it. I know my husband, you know. I know my husband. I don't think you do, though. And when she said that when anyone ever talks to her kid, Les has 4 children. He has 1 with her. We'll get back to that in a minute. When she talks to her and to her kid about it, she's like, if you hear anything, come to us first. You know who we are. Like basically they're lying. Your dad's a good guy. She was asked about Me Too. She just skipped it over. Went right back to her book. I think that's getting off track from But God First, which is the name of her book. I think we all go through hard times in this world and in our life. Mine are not over just because I found Christ. I think we need to keep the focus on him. Can you imagine being like, no, let's not talk about my husband and all the women he abused. Let's focus on Christ. That's such a weird thing to say. Oh, God. I hate it when people use God to cover for predators, but that's why the church is full of so many predators. Hello, I'm also a survivor of a predator at church when I was a child. So, come on. But first, God, her book, means God before anything and everything. Then she basically tries to sell all of us on God. Like, hey, let's not talk about less. Have you found God? If you haven't found God, you're missing out. Come on now. She's hosting Big Brother again now with her predator's name. She actually turned the job down once, but she didn't because she didn't want it. She was forced to take it, apparently. I don't know. I don't get that, but I believe it. It's probably less making her take it. She also is falling in this conspiracy theory crap, thinking that he was just set up. There was a power struggle at CBS, but that's not why this man had allegations. She talks more and more. She did this in several interviews. I think this one was for Variety. If I didn't have Jesus in my life at that point, blah, blah, blah. God says to forgive, blah, blah, blah. Without faith in my life, I didn't understand the importance of forgiveness. But the Bible, it's like, okay, I'll forgive people. First, you got to admit what you did. If you're not sorry and don't do it, you know what I mean? She also talks about getting plastic surgery after she left the talk. And I understand it. Hollywood is not kind to aging women. I get that. I'm not judging women who get plastic surgery, but her reason behind it is ugh. Being in front of the camera is part of her bread and butter. I get that. She has to maintain how she looks. She says it was a form of healing, going under the knife, because these meanies can't get me down and I'm going to look so good when I get back. Ugh, I hate this. She compares it to if someone breaks up with you, that you're going to get a revenge body. Well, her facelift is a revenge face. A revenge to who? The women who shunned you because you sided with a predator? Do you know what I mean? I think the reason why I'm talking about this is because it gives us a really good insight into the mind of what the mental gymnastics, and I say this as someone who did this, the mental gymnastics that women do to justify staying with someone who has done horrible things. Especially if he did some horrible things to someone else, maybe not you specifically. But the thing is that when you look into things she said about her marriage, it sounds like Les is the worst thing that ever happened to her, and she had to completely change to be with him, and maybe it's a point of no return. Because she told Larry King she didn't want to have kids. But Moonves had a feeling she might regret it if they didn't try. Now, y'all know that I talk all the time about abusers trying to force you to have kids. Now, my abuser even tried to knock me up and admitted it was so that I couldn't leave. Look at this. He pushed for it. And he was right. He knew me better than I knew myself. Now she says that she can't imagine a life without having a son. She said in multiple interviews that she didn't ever want to get married or have kids. She loved her career. Yet this is the career that made her change her face because of racism. And she had to pivot to Big Brother from serious journalism. So now she's all like, can't imagine my life without my son, my husband. I would have hated being a foreign correspondent. She's fully committed to this relationship and this life. I get it. I hate it, but I get it. She's also admitted in interviews she likes being with someone who calls on her stuff, calls the shot. I let him be boss. This is weird. He's the first person in my life who didn't annoy me. Oh, your standards are too low. The way their relationship started, according to Les's ex, was immoral. He cheated, traumatized the family, and what may happen to Julie is after all this sacrifice, he's going to do the same thing to her. But maybe he won't, because by being with her, he avoids accountability for all that abuse. And he's still working. This stuff is so complex, y'all.